deliverables. The other objectives are to announce to you that the President approved the budget on the night of his arrival from the United States at the Lagos International Airport. Sign into law a new tax regime called the Value Added Tax, or VAT. As this briefing progresses, we will give you more details about what the VAT is, and we also invite you to make use of our offices for more focused discussion with policymakers and analysts on what the VAT tax entails in terms of its timeline for implementation. So with respect to the first item, the 100-day deliverable, which we hereby formally release to the public, we will let us do that by giving you just summaries. In the coming days and weeks, we will be sharing with you through the media, print, and Beneficiaries of the at-risk youth program were transitioned from rehabilitation to recovery and reintegration. That means they were taken from the rehab centers into adult with their families or into normal society. 123. Domestic scholarship were secured for the Ministry of Education to study mental health and to pursue master's degrees in advanced practical clinical psychiatry mental health. So in order to solve the problem of at-risk youth, you will see that there is a vicious cycle between mental health and drug addiction, for example, or other crimes. So if the problem can be tackled from the inception, where persons begin to show signs of mental health, then you will prevent them from drug addiction, you will prevent them from other forms of deviant behavior. So 15 persons are being sent to study master's degree in clinical mental health. And then the last mile distribution of drugs and medical supplies to Mosorado and Mangibi counties were completed. Last mile, for those of you familiar with health, meaning if, for example, the drug is taken from the central medicine store in Monrovia to the county depot, then it gets taken from the county depot to the district depots. From there down to facilities becomes a challenge. And all of us here, we come from certain various counties. There is no county in this country that doesn't have at least one village that is inaccessible, even by motorbike. So in Mangibi and Mosorado, this was the one we say about 2 out of 15 counties. There was a pilot to show what can be done when everything scales up to the whole country. And then steps were also taken to identify areas where 4 regional diagnostic centers can be built. Now, then the question comes, before, if you want details, my colleague or Honorable Wellington Bashu, who led this process, will provide the basic details. Why will we accomplish 74% out of 100? The context is the budget, which we will go to shortly. When the second round result was announced and when preparations for the transition began, the legislature, before they went on their annual break, returned the budget to the executive for reprioritization, knowing that a new government was coming in. So from January to the time that the budget was approved a few weeks ago, we were operating on what we call in budgetary term 112, meaning we cannot execute the full amount of the budget. We could only meet certain basic discretionary, non-discretionary spending, like we have to pay civil servant salaries, we have to pay contractual workers, like security guards and other people who do cleaning services. We have to pay contractual debt, domestically and internationally. So the remainder, when the legislature approved 1/12 of the budget, when you remove all of these non-discretionary spending, whatever little that remains is what we use to undertake all of these interventions. So if we had a full budget as of January 22nd, where the government had access to the entire 600+ million, we might have exceeded target. So that is the context in which we can see that 74% of the 87 interventions were achieved and the remainder remain ongoing. Why are some of them still ongoing? Because some of them have procurement requirements. So executing a 112 budget does not favor procurement, because procurement is a bit protracted. You have 100 days. Some procurement activities take up to 60 days. And when you are done with that, then the approval process. Then the question will be asked, how did the Ministry of Public Welfare manage? The Ministry of Public Welfare now have mastered the art of procurement for infrastructure. What he did was, there's a requirement in the law for what we call framework contracting. You can issue procurement notice and put a caveat that contract award is subject to the availability of funds. So when they did that, immediately upon being appointed and confirmed, by the time the legislature approved the 112 in late February, they've already gathered no objection from PPCC. They've already identified the contractors. And so when the funds came, they could go immediately into the field to complete the amount of work they did. So we will start here for the 100-day deliverable. Probably you cannot go to the budget. We will take questions on this before we proceed to the budget.
I think let's go to the budget.
All right. Thank you very much. Now the budget. As you will recall and mention it here, the President approved the budget on the night of his arrival here from the United States. And there's a number of important details about the budget that we will need to inform you and through you, the Liberian people. The initial budget submitted by the former administration was around 625 million. Now, that is a headline, but there were several significant constraints with this budget. For example, more than 60%, 60 ministries and agencies 60 ministries and agencies had no allocation for goods and services. These included even the Ministry of Public Works, for example, 0. And then 4 sectors. Our budget had 11 sectors. A sector comprised of a group of related institutions. That 60 accounted for 4 sectors not having any operational goods and services, meaning they couldn't pay their light bills, they couldn't buy fuel for their generator or for their cars, they couldn't get stationery to print documents, and so on and so forth. If that budget had gone on to be passed, the 625. So one of the things that we did when we assumed responsibility was to relook at the budget, the revenue particularly. Now the revenue, there are certain components of the revenue that require more extensive consultations and research to determine the projection, especially the tax. Because taxes are levied on productive activities. And the process of doing this requires that tax analysts will go and sit with taxpayers and determine their production schedule for the year. The taxable component of their production is what we use the tax rate on to determine what will be their tax liability for the year, and that add up to make up the revenue envelope. So however, there are other components of the revenue like SOE contributions or the administrative fees from different ministries and agencies, or review of certain policies and regulations. We went through all of this and were able to get an additional $66.8 million. That was the draft budget that went into the draft budget of 692.4 that was submitted to the legislature. So in that 692.4 now, all ministries and agencies, no matter their size or weight, were able to get some minimum goods and services. That was not enough. We didn't feel good about it. The work of a budget analyst, all of us consider ourselves as such, is more challenging when you don't have enough resources to give to institutions whom you know need it. For example, you budget for the wages of health workers, fully budget for that, but you don't have enough to provide for transporting drugs to the health workers, for buying supplies at hospitals, or in this case, not enough resources for Ministry of Public Works, for example, to go and do road inspection, or for police to do patrol at night. So it's always difficult. So most of the time when we hear in the public, the Ministry of Finance did this or did that, it's part of the territory. We take that as the hazard of the job. So at the legislature, a number of actions went on, which you have heard, because we know that the legislature passed a budget at the amount of 738 million and a little change. That means there was an increment of 46.5 million over and above what we submitted. And of course, during the back and forth with the legislation, we made it clear to them that as far as all the assumptions and analysis we knew were concerned, there was no additional space in the budget to reach that amount. But since we were discussing this 3 months or almost 4 months into the year, we have observed the macroeconomic environment, we have observed the business environment, and we made some reassessments. So our counter proposal to them was, initially in fact they had said 51 million. We made a counter proposal of 21 million. And now that the budget was with them, they had the ultimate say. So they could only concede to reduce it by 4.5 million. So we have decided, therefore, to initiate some budget management strategies. And one of those strategies is to, from our perspective, from the implementation perspective, treat all revenue additions as contingent. Meaning, we will watch the space, we will see how the additional assessment that was either made to the LRA, because LRA was charged to raise additional 8 million, some ministries additional 7 million, or 1 million here, there, and yonder. We will watch that space for a number of months so that the associated expenditure that are tied to the additional increment will only be executed when we see those additional revenue lines performing. Because it's better to have a small size budget and you have the budget credibility, meaning you have a balanced budget or you overperform slightly, than to announce a big budget number and then you suffer budget shortfall. We have decided this time around, when the president said no business as usual, that one of it there. You announce big budget, you create expectation across society, and then when you have budget shortfall, everybody fall down with the budget. And some people do not have the necessary strength. When they fall down, they get hurt. And I'm using this symbolically. When ministries and agencies plan to make interventions, take for example people with disabilities. There's a disability commission. You give them a significant amount of money. They build expectation among the disabled community. And then at the end of the fiscal year, they don't get anything. You have made them to figuratively fall down and get hurt. Because those are 100% dependent population. So as a result, our strategy is to buy low the revenue. We expect, as we said, to watch this space, that we have programmed the flow, the cash flow on the revenue side for the additional resources to start coming in from September. That is our expectation. As we reported in the last time at the budget hearing, we are experiencing revenue overperformance. Until we get to the middle of the year, we cannot be too certain that the overperformance is going to continue. And even as we speak, that overperformance has some attendant risk. In our first appearance here, we talk about salary contingency of around 4 million. Because in our draft budget we have salary of 297 million. So the monthly outturn is showing that we may deplete that entire salary contingency. So in that case, the revenue or performance will be the buffer for salaries. So that is why all contingent revenue and contingent expenditure are being backloaded to the last 4 months. And part of it too is to and the GSA come up with payroll audits to know exactly where we stand. Then another policy that we have adopted, if we are going to use or execute a contingent expenditure that are attached to the contingent revenue, the default policy is to put them to one-off expenditure. Meaning, you can put them to salaries, for example, or any other expenditure that obligates you over multiple years. Because these are one-off revenue. It's not every year that the legislature will discover for the 6.5. So it's just that you are walking on the road and you come across $100 bill, whereas your daily budget is $5. Then all of a sudden, because you discover $100 bill, then you start to make $105 budget per day. So you expect to come across $100 bill on the road every day. So it's the same concept. That's a simplified version of contingentizing certain revenue. That is what we have done. So, and then let me talk briefly on the VAT before we allow Mika to take over. Value-added tax was also approved along with the budget. And a lot of us here who have some basic elementary understanding of economics or who have traveled in the neighboring country, value-added tax is a sort of tax that